From the top of the icefall here, we went up with our stores to Camp 4 there. Our idea now was to camp as high as possible on the slopes of Everest and from there to attempt the top. But before we could do that, we had to have a camp on the South Col here. And to do that, we had to carry 500 pounds of stores onto the col. This very important and difficult job was given to 19 Sherpas who were led by Charles Wiley. And on May the 22nd, we at Camp 4 watched them going up to the col and starting down. And when we saw them begin on their return journey, we knew that their job was finished and that it was time for us to start on the first assault. Tom Bodillon and I went off from Camp 4 with Tom in the lead and myself following, wearing the heavy oxygen equipment. And we made our way over slopes up to the South Col, and 4 days later we stood on the south summit, 28,700 feet, 500 feet higher than anyone had ever been before. But although we were only 300 feet from the top, we hadn't enough oxygen to go on, and we had to start down. Coming down, we were so tired, so dull with lack of oxygen, that we had very little disappointment. That came later. We came in to our friends on the col, and we'll always remember the drinks that they gave us when we got there. It was now our turn to hand over to Ed Hillary and Tenzing the second assault party.
I'm Ed Hillary, and in New Zealand I'm a beekeeper. Tenzing and I were given the job of doing the second assault. We'd climbed together a good deal before now and had become pretty accustomed to each other's techniques and abilities. Actually, Tenzing didn't speak a great deal of English, and I don't speak a great deal of Hindustani, but we seem to understand each other pretty well. Well, Evans and Bodillon had done a wonderful job in reaching the south summit and pioneering the route up there, only 300 feet from the top. And now we had the job of trying, if we could, to carry on the work and getting right to the summit. Well, we started off from Camp 4 in the Western Coombe, and with the good wishes of our friends, we started off on the second assault. We shook hands with all our companion climbers and all the Sherpas, and in carrying our very heavy loads of oxygen and equipment, we moved up the Western Coombe, first of all up to Camp 7 where we spent the night, and then the following day climbed right up to the South Col. Life in a high camp is a miserable business. There's always a very strong wind blowing, and it's always very cold, and the whole of your attention is turned to survival. At night we breathed oxygen so that we could have enough strength and energy left for the following day's work. Now, this camp of ours before the final assault, Camp 9, was established here at 27,900 feet. And when we set off next morning, we first of all had to climb up some very steep slopes until we reached the south summit there. The snow on those slopes was very dangerous indeed, and we felt that at any moment it might avalanche. We climbed up it as carefully as we could, and a good deal of fear and trepidation, and when we were about halfway up it, I remember turning to Tenzing and saying to him, "Well, what do you think about it, Tenzing?" And he said he didn't like it at all. He thought it was decidedly dangerous. So then I said, "Well, what do you think? Do you think we should go on?" And he said, he's a very polite chap, "Just as you like." Well, we continued on and finally managed to reach the south summit, the point that Evans and Bodillon had reached some days previously. And then I want to show you now a picture of what the view is like from there along to the top. You'll notice there that on the right-hand side of the ridge were great overhanging masses of ice called cornices, and these are decidedly dangerous because if you stand on them, they'll break off and precipitate you down the mountainside. So we had to climb along that ridge slowly and carefully, just keeping down on the left-hand side of it, having to cut steps all the way. We were going quite well, and even though we're at nearly 29,000 feet, we're taking every care. But then when we were about halfway along, I suddenly noticed that Tenzing seemed to be in some distress. When I looked at him closely, I saw that he was breathing very quickly indeed. So I immediately examined his oxygen set and found that the outlet from his oxygen mask, about 1.5 inches in diameter, was almost completely blocked up with ice, which meant that he wasn't really getting much benefit from his set. Fortunately, I was able to release this ice and give him immediate relief. We continued on again, cutting steps all the way, and we really were getting rather tired, and never being able to find the top. It seemed to elude us, until finally we came around the back of a steep bump and climbed up about 40 feet, and there we were. It was a wonderful experience to arrive there, and the view really was an amazing one, because the day was fine, and we could see a tremendous distance in every direction. In some directions we could see mountains of 150 to 200 miles away. Well, we knew that our reserves of oxygen were not great. We're going to have to get down as quickly as possible. So after 15 minutes on top, we turned back along our tracks, climbed down the most difficult parts of the ridge, and reached the south summit. And then we had to descend down that slope that had worried us so much on the way up. Coming down that dangerous avalanche snow, I think, is the most unpleasant hour I've ever spent. Feeling very tired and weary, we moved down to the South Col, where we were met by one of our companions, George Lowe. Next day, he assisted us down the slopes into the Western Coombe, and happy but very tired, we've moved down towards our companions. There you see George Lowe in the lead, giving the signal of success to our companions, and we, Tenzing and I think, were far too tired to make any signal at all. As our companions received the news, they rushed up the track towards us, and before long we were shaking their hands and embracing them and telling them that all their efforts in the mountain had been crowned by success. It was wonderful to get back to them and to be able to give them this good news. There you see us telling them the news, and this is a picture of myself. And that very cheerful smile of Tenzing. The two of us didn't climb the mountain. It was the whole party, and this shows you the other members of the party, our gallant Sherpas who carried so well for us, and the other European climbers who got the two of us to the top. But above all, I think, John Hunt, our leader, a very fine leader who inspired us throughout.
Three men, a beekeeper, a brain surgeon, a newspaperman, who endured great physical hazards for 2 months in order to climb higher on a mountain than any man has ever gone. The film you saw was the United Artists release, The Conquest of Everest, and the whole story of the expedition you can read in Sir John Hunt's new book. Now, we are very grateful to the Royal Geographical Society and the American Everest Committee for letting these members of the expedition appear here.